Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining for another session of Azure Powered Lunch. As you know that we record these calls and place these recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded, you may have a drop off now. And one other thing is that any views expressed on this webinar are my own and not my employers, which is Microsoft. Okay. So with that, let's start with our topic of discussion, which is private link service direct connect. Um, This is a very exciting feature that has just released in public preview. And as usual, we are going to be going over a quick, level set on Private Link and then Private Link Direct Connect, what this feature brings to the table, what are the benefit, use cases, demos, and of course, we will talk about some limitations if there are any. And if you don't mind, folks, if you can mute your phone if you're not speaking, that we appreciate it. So with that, let's talk about what is Private Link. As you know, that Private Link is Microsoft capability that is built into its network fiber and allows you to access services which are public services, PaaS services, your own services, allow them to access it on a private endpoint. This service is built in a number of PaaS services, and if you have your own and infrastructure service like a set of VMs and or service that is running on virtual machines, what you can do is have a standard load balancer sit in front, create a private link service on top of it, and that's how you can create private endpoint and access it, over a private IP. Okay, that's that. So that's what is available uh, before this private public preview arrive. What this does is, in my opinion, this kind of a very, very powerful feature. What it allows you to do is gives you the ability to create a private link service without requiring a load balancer. And it's not just that. Basically, let's say that you have a endpoint that is accessible, that is inside a VNet or accessible from that VNet. Let's say that you have that endpoint is for a service that is uh, running on-prem, and you have a express route linked to that. Think of it. You can create a private link service on top of it. No need to have a load balancer. So, and that's why this is kind of a really, really exciting feature, in my opinion. And I think a lot of customer are gonna kind of take advantage of it. So let's talk about the regular private link service, or I mean most people how they do it. Let's say you have a web application that is running on multiple VMs. You want to expose it over a private endpoint. What you do is you create a load balancer, which is on the left hand side without PLS direct connect, and you create a private link service on top of it. Here you go. Now you can access, uh, create private endpoint for that PLS and access it. Okay, that's the scenario without PLS direct connect. Now with PLS direct connect, no load balancer needed. Okay, and you can um, just directly connect to the private endpoint if there is any of that web server and expose it, create private endpoint on top of that PLS that you have created. Okay, this is with PLS Direct Connect. And these are some of the new use cases that are now supported. For example, you have a um, legacy application that is running inside a VNet. It has a private IP to that you access it. You want to expose it over a private endpoint. Just create a private link service using PLS Direct Connect. Not need a load balancer or anything, and that's it. You can expose it, and then the clients can create private endpoints on top of it. So that's one kind of use case that is now enabled. The second use case that I want to talk about is I briefly discussed. You have an on-prem service or server that is running, which is running certain service. It has an IP, and you can access that IP from your provider VNet through express route. So think of it. You have a service that is running on-prem. You can access that IP from from your provider VNet where you want to create the private link service. As long as you have the visibility, you can create a private link service direct connect with destination IP of that IP that you have on-prem. And here we go. So once again, no load balancer, nothing. On-premise application, now you're exposing it um, through your private link service direct connect. Any questions, folks? Okay,
Sorry, one question.
please.
So, uh, from the client VNet and provider VNet, if that IP address, whatever I have in on-prem server, if that IP address is also exist on the client VNet, will there be any IP
Doesn't matter.
conflict scenario?
Nope, nope, nope. Exactly. That's the because that you are when you access the private endpoint in your client VNet, that has no bearing on what IP address is on the provider VNet that's it's seeing because it's the way private link exposes the service through private endpoint is like it's running in your own VNet. Okay, so yeah, that will have no bearing, and we will see that in a demo. Okay.
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's that. So, and I wanna talk about a um, practical scenario. This was a scenario with a customer where we have an IP-based application prior to PLS Direct Connect, and the way we expose that application over a PLS is we created these a VM scale set with a load balancer. It's a Linux VM scale set where VM, the only thing they're doing is forwarding. Okay, so think of it. They're all forwarding, IP forwarding to this backend uh, private IP, and we are simulating like they're all requests just go directly to that private IP. That's it. So this IP forwarding, and then we created a PLS on top of it, and that's how we have to do it. Just look at it. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in this architecture to enable PLS. Okay, and of course, additional cost because VMs are compute, and there is some cost to it. So just keep this picture in mind, and as we go, sorry, move too fast. As we go with the PLS Direct Connect, all of that set of VMs are gone. Very simple architecture where you have PLS Direct Connect directly connecting to the private IP using that private IP of the application as a destination IP and exposing it over private links so you other apps can connect to it or the customers can connect to it over a private endpoint. Any questions so far? Good. Let's continue to go with the okay, how you implement it. By the way, there is a documentation um, that released a public preview. It has detailed guideline, but I just want to show you the highlights here. Number one, you have to enable this preview feature. It's called allow private link service UDR. You have to enable it. It's under Microsoft.Network Provider. It may take some time. Once you enable it, make sure it is enabled, and then in this particular subnet where you're going to be creating your PLS, make sure this network policy, which is called Private Link Service Network Policies, it's disabled. Okay, once you do that, then you will be creating your PLS and private endpoint, and we will see it in the demo. Okay, um, so I have two demos for you. One of my demos is very simple in that. I am going to show you the scenario that we talk about. You have a web server. It has a, of course, it's a private IP. It's running in a VNet, and I'm going to expose it over PLS Direct Connect, and we will be able to connect to it from the client VNet, you know, and the whole thing, just like this depicted in this picture. Okay. Um, and let's go through this demo first, and then we will come to the second demo. Okay. So here is my browser, and what we're going to do is, first of all, let me show you here. This is my, sorry, this is my app server VM. By the way, it's running a very simple app server. Look, it shows "Hello World" from a demo SaaS app. Okay, nothing fancy. So basically, this is the website that is running. Okay, just to make sure that this website is accessible over a private IP. Not so far, we haven't created any private link service or anything. So this is my VM. That VM is running in the same subnet where the web server is running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this VM. So this is the IP address of this VM 10 dot, and I can show it to you. Give me 1 second. Let's go into the browser. This is the VM. And if we go into networking, network settings, you see this is the IP address. Okay, that's that. So let's come back here. If I do curl, I can access it. So just to prove the point that you have accessibility. So now we are going to go through the steps of creating the private link service. Okay. Um, just for the sake of time, I have already enabled the feature flag, and I have already um, created a subnet where that policy is disabled. Okay. So now let's create the private link service first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this. First of all, let me go back here, and this is, um, let me open this one. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to set some environment variable. I'm using bash. So we go from there. Give me 1 second. Let the bash come up. In the meantime, any questions, folks? Okay, here we are. So let me just do the paste. Okay, so as you can see here, this is I'm setting the VNet name, subnet name, the PLS that I'm creating, the private link service is going to be called PLS Direct Connect Web App 03, and this is important. This should be the IP that you are targeting. Okay, so if the IP is on-prem, this is, or it's the IP of the legacy app, this is the IP. So that will be the destination IP, okay? And now let's see the script. I'm gonna paste the script here and we go from there. Just for the sake, I'm gonna not gonna be typing the script. I'm not good at typing. Okay, so basically, this is if you see any network service that you private link service you create, this is how it's created. That's what we're doing, except we are now using a destination IP address. This is the destination IP address that we have above. I'm just gonna press enter. So it has started running and it will take a few minutes to complete. And these are the two NAT address. You have to provide these two addresses, and that has to come out of a subnet. So, okay, sorry, let me just go back. Okay, so these are the two IP addresses that you need, that two IP configuration. Okay, so these IP addresses doesn't have to be in the same subnet where your destination IP is, because if your destination IP is on-prem, I mean, they cannot be in the same subnet. Okay. And by the way, just keep in mind the destination IP has to be static. It cannot be a dynamic IP. Okay. It cannot do dynamic IP. So that's that. And that's pretty much it. So once you run it, it gets completed. So let's go back here. And what we're going to do is we are going to wait for this service to show up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here and this is private link. And this, by the way, this service will show up in private link. Okay. It has been created. So this service is there now. And let's refresh it one more time to make sure everything looks good. Okay. So that service is there. And by the way, uh, you, you can create a private endpoint from the UI as well. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in here, private endpoint connection, create a private endpoint and I'm gonna name it app03-PE, and of course it's gonna pick up the PLS, um, and uh, yeah, that's dynamically created. Okay, okay, and then we are gonna create the P. It's running the validation, and here we go. Um, it will take a second for PE to complete. Let's see. Hold on, where did I create the P? Sorry, I think I need to go back. Let's refresh it. What I'm going to do is, oh, sorry, I overlooked it. I created a wrong subnet. So let's go to the private link resource one more time, and we are this time hopefully I'm paying more attention to create it in the right subnet. Okay, so pardon me, guys. F03B PE. Okay. Next. So this is my resource, virtual network. I should have been paying more attention. My apologies. So this is the destination, and this is PE subnet. So this is a different VNet, and as you can see, I'm in a different VNet in different subnet. I'm creating it. So let's create it. Okay, give it a second. Okay. So what? So just kind of a quickly recap here. What we have is we have a web server with a private IP. What we have done is create a PLS direct on top of it without using a load balancer. You haven't seen me using a load balancer, and we just created it. And now what we are doing is we are creating a private endpoint, and that private endpoint will be creating in a different VNet. And by the way, in that VNet, I have already have a VM running, so I can connect to that private endpoint and basically check if that private endpoint is running fine. So let's go into the settings of this private endpoint. And if we go into DNS configuration, so this is the IP address. Okay, so now going back to my VMs, this is the VM that I have that is running in the same VNet where I have dropped the private endpoint, because the private endpoint, I cannot just access it over a browser. So I'm gonna do a curl and I'm going to paste the IP address of the private endpoint. And when I hit it, look, I mean, nothing earth shattering website or something, but just see, we have a web server that, we have with a private IP, and we just create a private link service on top of it, create a private endpoint, and uh, we did that. So that works. Second demo, by the way, that I want to show you is, I think that's gonna be. That's once again one of the customer we are trying to uh, kind of help them get going with the private application gateway. One of their asks was they wanted private link support for application gateway. As you know, application gateway does support private endpoint, private link, but it does not support this private link if you create a application gateway with a private IP. This is uh, something that is not there. Okay, so what you can do is what we are proposing is that you can use private link service direct connect to fill that gap, because if you deploy an app gateway, it has a private IP. We are using that as a destination IP and creating a PLS direct connect, and that's how we are providing that support. So yes, the support is not built in, but we are building this support using the PLS direct connect. So just imagine this. This is only possible because PLS Direct Connect is here. Let me show you the app gateway. And that app gateway is only doesn't only have a, so this is the application gateway, and this, as you can see, front end IP is a private IP address. Okay. And if I take this IP address and if I go back to my VM, and it is, by the way, it's running in the same VNet where my the demo VM was running, the initial demo VM that we have. So if we go in here and if I do a, yes, well, if I just do a curl on this one here, um, 1 second. Okay. But anyways, basically, if you do the curl, you can get it. And now, if since I have created a private endpoint to it, and let me show you the other private link service and its private endpoint, so we should be able to access it from there. So let's go in here. We have two private link services. Uh, Overview. Let's do the private link services. This is the other private link service. This is for App Gateway. It has one private endpoint, and this is the destination IP address. What we are gonna do is, I think I'm calling it from the wrong window, maybe. Yeah, sorry. Never mind. This should be called from the uh, from this VM. So you see, this has two. I mean, look at this one. Welcome to PLS Direct Demo. There are two websites behind it in this app gateway, and it's gonna show you one site each time it's doing round robin load balancer. So this is if we are directly accessing it. Now we are gonna go through the private endpoint. So let's take a look at the private endpoint for that. So we have this service. This has private endpoint connection, and this is the exact private endpoint. Let's go into the DNS configuration 10.1.0.4. Okay, so keep that in mind. And this time I'm gonna go into the right VM. So now Control C, Control L. So now I am on the private endpoint side. Remember, I'm creating that private endpoint in the same where I'm doing the demo just to save complexity. So now let's do a curl on this particular. Um, Look, think of it. I mean, we are now creating, just think, private app gateway with private IP does not support PLS. What we did, we bring in PLS Direct Connect Preview, created a private link on top of it, and now we are accessing that app gateway capability over a private endpoint. So that's kind of I wanted to show you. Any questions, folks? So
Uh,
let's go ahead, please.
Sorry, one question. So will this the incoming traffic can controllable via NSG for this PLS traffic coming from what are the
I mean,
traffic
it's a
coming
private
from client
endpoint.
VNet?
It's a
Yeah.
private endpoint. So yeah, you can put NSG on top of it and control it. NSG on the subnet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
just like any other, it's a private endpoint in the end, you
Okay.
know. So no matter, it's no different. It's the only thing is that we are kind of removing the need to have a um, load balancer.
Load
Okay.
balancer. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So some of the key consideration. I just want to kind of wrap up since we have only 3 minutes. You need at least two IP configuration. Okay. Second, your destination IP, which is the target IP, can be on-prem, it can be in the same subnet. It has to be static. It cannot be dynamic. You have to disable, the network policy. We already talked about it. At this moment, there is no migration support. Okay, support for UI is not there, but you can use PowerShell, CLI, or Terraform. Okay, um, and if you have a policy on your subscription to disable IP forwarding, this will not work. IP forwarding, it has to be enabled to make this feature work. Just keep that in mind. Okay. And then let's talk about, sorry, for some reason it goes too fast. Some of the, yeah, second, there was, yeah. So that's that. And then let's talk about some of the final thoughts. So this PLS Direct, as you know, this is a feature update to Private Link service, which uh, removes the requirement of having a load balancer when you're creating a private link service. You can create it on top of now any IP that is either available in the provider VNet or accessible, visible from that provider VNet. It has to be static. And as far as I know, there is a limit of 10 GB per gigabytes per second for the throughput at the moment. And you have to follow certain guidelines, enable a feature flag, and disable private link service network policies for this to work. So that's all I wanted to share. I hope you find this useful and hope to see everybody next week for the Azure Power Lunch session and hope everybody had a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Thank you.